Welcome to the Creation Grounds podcast, where we break down the success, habits, and the life of people in creative fields, discover how they've gotten to where they are, what they aspire to be, and how you can live your dreams too. Let's get to the show. Welcome to the show, Lauren. How you doing?
I am wonderful. How are you?
I'm doing good. The Creation Grounds is glad to have you. Where did you grow up, Lauren?
That is actually a very complicated question because, so what I tell people is I'm from New York because I was born here, but I moved to a bunch of different cities. I may have gone to 10 elementary schools and
10?
Something like that, from kindergarten through 8th grade. And I went to high school, though, in D.C. For the same high school all 4 years. And then college in Atlanta. So I wouldn't necessarily say I'm from D.C. because I spent the same amount of time there as I did in Atlanta at Spelman, but those are my formative years.
Yeah.
But I've also lived in New York ever since I graduated from college. So because I lived here the longest of any place, I just say I'm from here. I'm not really from anywhere. I'm from every major city USA, basically.
Okay.
That is a very long answer. So somewhere in between D.C. and New York is probably the right answer.
And when did you move to D.C.?
For high school, and so 9th through 12th grade is what I spent in D.C. And it was interesting because it was like the early 2000s, so it was a lot of a lot going on in the city at that time. And I did feel somewhat like I had been like dropped off in somebody else's territory. Like that's what that's what it felt like to me, because I had mostly gone to suburban schools, and then we moved into like DC, and I took the train every day to school with me and my I have a sister who's a year younger than me, and so we just adapted really, and it was tough. It was like people got in a fight, like people that died, it's a lot, it's intense, it was difficult. And then the city is not even like that anymore. It's like Disneyland, like it's really nice now. Like I go back, don't even recognize it. So in a lot of ways it was traumatic, but I don't think that experience is different than a lot of other people that grow up in inner cities. The only difference is that I didn't start there, so I have a little bit of a different perspective. Like I really did feel dropped off. But I made friends with a bunch of dope people that were awesome, and trying to survive it too. And just because people are in it and from there doesn't mean that they want to be there either.
Absolutely not.
Yeah, so it kind of teaches you or shows you that there's like this human stuff that we all have, and just because people speak differently or raised differently than you, that doesn't mean that they don't have that same human stuff that you have. So maybe that's really my origins as an actor, really, like being empathetic and understanding people's humanity. But that was my experience in DC. And I went to it was an interesting setup because I went to a school that was Catholic. So it was very strict rules, but then everything outside of that was like chaos. And most of the kids that go to that school, Archbishop Carroll, most of those kids go to college, but everyone else outside of that wasn't everyone else. That's not what everyone else knew that they were going to do with their future. I mean, some people definitely did, but that was definitely not 100% of what was going on. So, but I always knew that I was going to college because I have my parents, and so that was never doubted in my mind. So that was also like an interesting dynamic because you're in one situation, you're around all these people where the only thing that matters to them is what they're going to do when they're 18, and then there are these other people that are just kind of like living. It's like, oh, I don't know.
Yeah. No direction, no guidance. It's
like that though, because those are your friends too.
Yeah. It's kind of beneficial for you because you're coming from the suburbs, you have that aspect of what humanity's like, and then like you said, you also go to like the inner city and you see like two different worlds, and you learn and grow from that. You also were raised by, I think from my understanding, your mother was a Black Panther, right?
She
or is
was, yeah, exactly.
I don't
think you ever stop being a Black Panther, but yeah, she is. She's an interesting person. She is very, very fascinating. So my mom is an immigrant. She is from Belize. She came to America when she was 7. And she's in her words, a bit of a wild child. So her parents sent her to live in California with her aunt in the Bay Area when the Black Panthers were developing. And so one of her cousins took her to a Black Panther meeting when she was 14. And the thing that she said she'll never forget is one of the leaders, he stood up and he said, a lot of things will try to control your mind, but you can always be free through education. And so she always had that in the way that she raised us. So I always thought like these things were normal. So like I could read when I was 3. And my parents, my dad used to have these cardboard cutouts that had a picture of a Black figure and then what they did. So like I knew about Carter G. Woodson and Matthew Henson and Booker T. Washington and W.E. Du Bois, like all these people from my home life. And I just thought that everyone knew about them because to me, they were like part of the American fabric. And at that time, I went to an all-Black elementary school too. So my whole world was just that. And my dad would say things like, most of the world is of people of color, and et cetera, et cetera. So, like, I literally didn't know that Black people were a minority. Like, I had no idea. Like,
yeah.
Not until we moved to Westchester, and I started in 3rd grade, and I was like, where do these people come from? Like, I'm so confused. So like growing up, I never really thought about it as growing up with a Black Panther because, I mean, she's my mom. I don't look at it like that. But when I look back on it as an adult, it's being comfortable with agitation. It's being comfortable as a free thinker. It's being comfortable with self-education. So that's what it was. So it kind of bothered me a lot when the Black Panthers get all of this negative attention because I never associated it with that.
Right.
To me, it was always about early childhood education. The breakfast program was what she participated in, and I don't know why people get so caught up on the guns part. I mean, I don't think it's any different than the NRA. In fact, I never understood why the NRA wasn't more a proponent of the Black Panther Party. I was just like, well, isn't that what you guys sort of like your main thing? Like, shouldn't you be like in defense? You know, I mean, but we know why, because of systemic racism, and you don't want to see brown faces taking power and all this stuff. But that's like a whole nother discussion. But if we were talking like general fair terms, that's how it would work. So that's what my early childhood life was like, and that's what I think she took away from the party. But yeah, I don't think that's something that ever leaves you.
Yeah, for sure. It's a fabric of like who she is.
Yeah.
So when was your first acting gig or modeling gig?
Well, funny you ask that. So actually, when I was a child, my mom had me doing some modeling stuff, and I was on the cover of a math book.
Were you really?
Yeah, when I was like 7. So I feel like that's my first like.
That's why you look familiar.
Exactly.
That's why you look familiar. I knew you was on a math book.
That's what it has to be. No, when I was 7, I think that's what I would like classify as my first like job. Like they paid me, I showed up, that was it. As an adult, I'm trying to remember. Oh, I did this play in Harlem, and it was about teenagers in this interesting love triangle, and my character ended up pregnant and abandoned. It was very sad. But that was my first like move to New York theater job. They call it a New Wine Box International. It's in a theater like above a church. And it was one of the first things I ever did. When I decided as an adult that I wanted to be an actor. So those are the two, I would say, as the first.
How old were you for that the one in Harlem?
25.
So you had already been going to Spelman? When did you? So you're a Spelman girl.
I went to Spelman, but I didn't. So I had another career. So I worked in finance. So when I came to New York, that's what I came to New York to do. When I graduated, and I had done this program called Sponsors of Educational Opportunities, and it basically puts minorities on Wall Street. So it's super dope. Like if you know anyone in college now that wants to work in finance, I would absolutely recommend doing it. It's a little hard to get into, but they take a couple of kids from all the major schools and from all the HBCUs every year. So they give you internship, and then at the end you can interview with other banks, and you're meeting these people throughout the summer. So you meet people from Goldman Sachs, JP Morgan, et cetera, which is access you would never get if you just had that internship. Like if you went to Wharton and you just had an internship at Goldman, there's no way you would be like meeting people from all the competing banks that summer too. So anyway, so 85% of the people that do SEO get an offer to come back for a full-time job. So that's what happened to me. So I worked at Citigroup for a little while doing credit research. And then I got promoted, because that's what happens after 2 years. You either get promoted or you're not asked back. Right. And then I said to myself, what do you want to do with your life? Which I guess is a big question to ask after only 2 years of being in the working world. But that really opened my eyes, because I also worked during the downturn, so it was during the financial crisis. So people were getting fired and like their life dreams were like turning upside down. These people who had worked there for 20, 30 years and they were being let go. And then there were no other banks hiring, so what are you going to do? So I was like, I don't think I love this that much to stay in it like it felt like being on a treadmill for like 3 decades. So I just said, well, if there were not, if I didn't have any fear, like what would I do, right? And I was like, I'm gonna be an actor, or I would be an actor. So,
you are an actor.
I am now. But I didn't know anything about acting, so I was like, okay, well, I'm gonna go to some classes, because that's what people do, right? They're like, I don't know. It seemed like the right thing to do. I kind of found it seemed like the right thing to do, like go learn how to do it, right? I found my way to those acting teachers actually through just researching and being around New York.
And some of those people that you've trained with, I mean, you trained with Thomas Wade, Susan Batson, who coached Nicole Kidman, and recently Marissa Phillips, right?
Yeah, so, and Marissa and Susan are kind of related. So Tom, there was some like acting conference or something, and I went to it, and he was like on a panel, so I just went to go talk to him afterwards, and he was like, you should come to my class. And I was like, sure. So Juilliard guy, he teaches a scene study class that he's been doing for forever. He's also a member of the Actor Studio. So anyway, so I went and I did that for a little while, and he asked me one time, did I want to go to the Actor Studio, and I was like, yeah, because it's only members only, and it's all these super dope people are members there, or like have tried out a bunch of times, and then they didn't get it till much later. Like I think the myth is that like De Niro tried out 5 times and all this stuff, and right now the head of it is it's Al Pacino, Harvey Keitel, and Ellen Burstyn, and which is amazing. So I was like, yeah, I want to go. So I went, and the session I saw was like so good, and Melissa Leo was in the audience, and Delroy Lindo, and just like these super dope people commenting on people's scenes and like helping them with their work. And I saw this guy who I thought was amazing, this actor Joe Marissa, who's like a mentor to me in a lot of ways. But anyway, I saw him and I went up to him afterwards, and we started talking, and then he was like, you should go to Susan Batson. He was like, I think that would be really helpful to you, especially as a black woman. He was like, I think you should go to Susan Batson. And I was like, I trust your opinion, so I'm going to go. So I went, and it's very intense there. It's so
I don't doubt it. I'm pretty sure.
It's a lot.
I'm sure it is.
It's not for everyone. It's a very specific way of working. Everything is for greatness. Everything has high stakes. There's no trepidation, anything there. I mean, it is a really, really special place. That what she does there and what she does with people and the training.
You're talking about the actor studio or Susan Batson?
Susan Batson studio. I mean,
okay,
it's
got
Susan
it.
Batson studio. She's just unearthly. Like, she's just amazing. So then I was like, oh, I found the place. Like, this is it.
Mm-hmm.
And that's where I think I really developed as an actor, was at the Susan Batson studio. Because she also, I felt like, and maybe this is just her talent of hers, but a lot of people say that, I feel like she understood me and understands people generally, and she could just really be very helpful. Like, I talk to people a lot that go to like institutional programs, programs at the big schools, and there's not in a lot of places for undergrad, there's not a lot of individual attention to who you are as an artist. So
right.
Because it's school. But acting training, I feel like, can be very helpful when it is this way, and I feel like that's why she's so well known as an acting teacher, and why people love her so much, and why people like Nicole Kidman thanked her when she got her Oscar because of that. Like, she really, really understands the work of acting and understands people and how they work as artists. So I highly recommend Susan. What's interesting about Marissa is that she spent 9 years studying with Susan, and so she speaks kind of the same language that Susan does. So that's why I like working with her a lot, because we come from the same place, so she can say things to me that I understand because I train there too. But Marissa is an amazing director and a really great actress in her own right. And also because she was an actor, I like directors who are actors because they understand what it takes for actors to take on a role and to get where they need to get to. And they can be very helpful in that way. And they also kind of know when people are BSing too.
Right.
I really, really, really like people who have acted before. One of the guys I met over at Oxford this summer, he said the same thing. He had been an actor for a long time, and he's a very, very successful director for the past 40 years. And he said that, because I was an actor first, I think that's really helped me. He was like, and if any of you want to be directors, I really think that you should keep acting for a little while longer, which I thought was interesting advice. So I highly recommend acting training. I think some people don't think of it as important, but I highly disagree.
Yeah, it's I think it's the foundation of everything. I mean, if you're directing somebody, you want to different crafts. So I mean, I guess there's different aspects of it, but I definitely agree with you that if you're an actor, you definitely know how to tell a story.
Yeah, there's nothing like experience, like actually going and doing the work, but it just gives you a different vocabulary and a way of thinking about it. Because the thing is, people think acting is easy because it looks easy, because the finished product looks like people.
Exactly.
The finished product looks like people are just talking. But if
great actors make it look easy.
Right, that's what I'm saying. But it's kind of like you ever heard that Sean Penn quote when he says I wish that acting was like tightrope walking, so all the assholes would just fall off.
That's funny.
I think that's great. Because it's not just people talking. There's so much going on. It's heightened. It's elevated into art, and that's what makes it dope. But because it looks like people talking, people think that everyone can do it. I mean, everyone can do it if they study it and apply themselves. You can't just walk into it. I wouldn't walk into basketball and be like, I played sports, and be like, I'm gonna shoot 10 3-pointers in a row. No, that's ridiculous.
Right.
Okay, I've traveled into another area.
No, it all makes it makes sense. Tell us about your experience in London. Because you just came back from London.
Yeah. At my Bada summer. So I was in Oxford, which is probably an hour and a half outside of London, at Oxford University, in this program that's called Midsummer at Oxford. And it's classical acting training, mostly Shakespeare. And it's super dope. I mean, it's people from mostly all over America that come to study classical acting and Shakespeare with teachers who teach at some of the big American programs, so Juilliard and Yale, and it's in association with Yale. So a bunch of people that are in the drama program at Yale are there too. And James Bundy, who's the dean of students at Yale, he teaches at BADA. And also some of the teachers are directors with these long histories in Britain who have directed 30, 40, sometimes 50 productions. This one guy had directed 50 productions and 12 operas, like just all over the world. So these artists who have worked for a very long time. And it's structured pretty intensely. So we have the classes from 9 to 6, and then afterwards people are rehearsing and learning different parts and going over things and doing exercises. And it was amazing because there's people from all over the country, removed from everything. So we're all having the same experience together, right? Like we're all American. Mostly. Some of the people are from other parts like Australia and France, but for the most part, I would say like 80% American. And learning all of these things about how to go about the work of performing Shakespeare in a very like tactical and fundamental way. Because I think that sometimes Shakespeare can feel foreign or feel like an academic exercise, and this was sort of bringing it closer to us. They took us also to the Royal Shakespeare Company. We saw Hamlet, and it's the first black Hamlet ever at the Royal Shakespeare Company. And it was dope. And so they set it also in West Africa. And so there were drums and colorful shit and dancing, and they're like very involved. And I was like, maybe every Shakespeare production should be black. I'm like, this is great. I mean, the Classical Theater of Harlem does like similar sort of stylized version of Shakespeare. And you can set Shakespeare really anywhere because the stories are very human. But exactly, very universal. So it was awesome. It was beyond awesome. So the experience generally at Oxford was great because you're away from everything. You're learning things that you care about. All these people deeply care about acting. People I would have never met because they're from all over the country. And studying with all these people that are either at renowned institutions and who have worked with well-renowned people and who are working in the industry. So it was beautiful. I can't say enough good things about it. I really, if anyone is interested in that, they should definitely hit me up. I'll tell them all about it. I think in a lot of ways it's great for artists. I think people should also consider doing it. There were a lot of college kids there, but there were also people that were grown-ups and were working in acting too. It was kind of all over the place, and there were some grad students there too. It was a wide mix of people, and it was this really great. I want to give it to you. In the program for the Royal Shakespeare Company play Hamlet, there was this author who wrote about fictional spaces, and I just thought it was the dopest thing that I've ever heard in my entire life. But it's basically saying that because like black folks have in a lot of ways been disconnected from identity, that that artists have created these fictional spaces. So people like, I'm just going to read a little bit of it. People like Jean-Michel Basquiat, Toni Morrison, Zona Hurston, um, it's a personal myth that becomes true, right? Like it's like
Right.
folklore that then becomes a part of our like fabric, and then it's really great because I want to read it to you because
Go
I
ahead.
love it. um, the stories and continents crossed and identities lost are legion, but displacement has also been the breeding ground for great art, great beauty. How else to explain the densely elusive paintings of Jean-Michel Basquiat, the transcendent prose of Toni Morrison, the trickster art of David Hammons? How else to explain the blues or bebop, Stevie Wonder's Inner Visions, or Marvin Gaye's What's Going On, or the life of the jazz musician Sun Ra, who insisted that he was abducted by aliens in childhood, raised on Saturn, and walked the earth as an alien, thus turning that collective history of capture and forced transportation into resonant personal myth? Why else is What else is there to do when you have no home after all but to create a place of your own? A home defined less by geography than by will and imagination. The fictional spaces of art are no less powerful than cities or nations for their power to inspire and connect and create communities based on shared affinities. That's what books like Toni Morrison's Beloved does, or Zona Hurston's Their Eyes Are Watching God. That's what hip hop does. That's what Eric B. and Rakim meant when they said it ain't where you from, it's where you at.
Oh, that's dope.
Wasn't that like the
That is
dopest
dope.
thing ever?
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, that's pretty dope.
Yeah.
Who was the teacher's name? Who put you onto this?
It's not even a teacher. It was in the program for the for Hamlet at the Royal Shakespeare Company, and I was just reading the program. His name, I don't know if I'm saying it right. It's Akaw Eshon, Ekow, and last name Eshun. But I was like, that's what it is, right? Like we are creating these fictional spaces. Like why people feel this intense need to create because of what we've lost.
Right.
And that's no less powerful than a fucking skyscraper, right? Like that was one of the most amazing things I've ever read about creating in art and Black humanity. I just thought that was great.
So you've traveled the world to study in London now, and you started from all over the U.S. How has your vision for your career changed from just 5 years ago? And how do you create a vision and then expand it from where you are?
And when I first started, I just wanted to act. I was like, put me in anything. I just want to like be.
Just want to do it.
In something. But now I feel like I want to contribute something.
Right.
Like I want to be a part of a generation that reflects humanity to people. I think that's what art is. In this part about fictional spaces, part of the reason I have the self-esteem about being Black not only comes from my parents, but because of some of the great art that I saw when I was growing up, and how do we create that for people too. So that's what's really important to me, and that's why I incorporated that company, Create Inc., the nonprofit, and I'd really like us to start with that vision before all of our work, because I think that it's important to think of art as a contribution, because it can get very egotistical, like I'm on stage, people are looking at me, sure. I must be special.
Yeah.
But it's really more of a responsibility of to storytelling, because what's that quote? There's nothing more unbearable than a story not told, and we have so many stories as a part of the fabric of our identity that I think are owed some light. So when I think about my career as an actor, that's what I focus on. What is my voice as an artist, and what do I want to say, and what do I want to contribute to the conversation?
And what advice would you give to someone who either wants to create a vision and they have no foundation, they don't know where to start, or they have a vision but now they've accomplished that vision and they want to break through their plateau and expand their vision for themselves as a person or a human or their career?
It's a big question.
Deep.
I mean, there are several parts, right? To if you just want to, if you want to start, you just have to start. You have to start from wherever you're going to start.
Right.
There's no right way into it. Whatever that feeling that you have, you should go with it. Because there's something about your desires and how they're manifested. So I think that your destiny, the things you want, they're already manifested to you, and it's your job to either connect and go for it, or to like get in your own way. But how do you? Right. So when you talk about expanding your vision, how do you kind of stay out of your way? I think a lot of that has to go into the messages that you're sending yourself. I think meditation is a great way to start, because there are so many outside forces that will sort of shift how you feel about yourself and your work. But you need to be the one sort of putting those things in. One of the teachers, actually Susan Batson's son, talks a lot about this, and he was like, the main thing that you are responsible for as an artist is staying inspired. So you want to be very careful about the things you're letting into your brain, whether that be what you read, your friends, social media, the art that you go to see. Like, if you want to be an artist, you need to see dope shit. Like, you need to be watching things that you think are dope. You need to be going to things that you would think are dope. And then you will meet other people that are like making that dope shit, like, and it will all sort of like build on itself.
Right.
like it's all synchronicity, it all connects itself. So that's not going to happen from your couch. So maybe you imagine it through the meditation from your couch, but and then push yourself out into the world over and over again in ways that inspire you, and then it will grow. That's what I think.
Okay, so expand on something that you mentioned, Create Inc. earlier, which is a nonprofit. Where did that idea come from? It came from that sense of I want to contribute something.
Well, I want to make stuff. Like I think of myself. Well, now I do. I've produced a couple of plays. I like making things. I like to put the people together and like make the thing grow. And because I had been in productions that I didn't love every aspect of it, and I came from a professional background, so I felt like some of those things I could do better. I just did. So I was like, I'm gonna do my own thing. And the first play we did, it was fine, and it was a good show. And not that many people saw it. I felt like some of the production element of it went really well. Like the costumes and the acting, like all that stuff is really good. But then if it's a contribution for other people, then people have to.
And they need to be in a seat.
Yeah, exactly. So but then you learn this stuff by doing it. That's what I'm saying. Like, you just have to start. Like, if you want to produce a play, you just do a play. Like, you'll figure it out, right? But the second one, we had a lot more success. But you asked me why I started it. It started because I wanted to make things. And I wanted to make things that I thought were professional, and I wanted to make things that I thought were a contribution to the conversation of art. I always admire the people that came from like the Negro Ensemble Company and institutions like that. And I was like, well, what if we could do that too with the young artists that I know? And the Negro Ensemble Company still definitely exists, and companies like that still exist. But I wanted to expand on that in the way, and from what I come from, in that hip hop, like, it ain't where you from, it's where you at, like that whole echelon of, because I'm a big fan of the guys, the entrepreneurship of hip hop guys and what they say, you know. So I was like, well, I want to do it from there because that's who I am. And I know a lot of people who are too, who love art and theater and film the same way I do. So that's where it came from. And I'm excited for it because I feel like the more you do it, the more you learn the craft and the business and grow as an artist. So it just builds on itself. So that's where the idea came from, and that's where it is kind of now, because the last play we did, the stage adaptation of Their Eyes Are Watching God, it was still in a small theater. It's a 50-seat house, but it was sold out every night. Yeah.
Yeah, because I wanted to go and I couldn't go.
Oh, you should have hit me up. I would have found a seat for you.
Oh man, dang.
It was like over 500 people came, so I was very happy with that. So I was like, no, next time maybe we'll do it in a bigger theater. And a lot of that had to do with like the way we marketed it and some of the actors we chose, like very like technical aspects of how some of this stuff works, but still in the vein of that making great art and making a contribution. So that's create.
Okay, and what does Black Girl Magic mean to you?
Oh, so many things, so many things. So what's interesting is being a Black woman.
Break it down, sister. Yeah, I feel like you about to.
Because you mentioned asking me that question, and I didn't want it to be too simple because I don't think it's a simple thing. I think it's a very storied history of what Black Girl Magic means and why it resonates with people so much. So, you know that I love Zona Hurston. So, in one of Their Eyes Are Watching God, it says, the Black woman is the mule of the earth. And that didn't really make that much sense to me at the time, the way it does now, because the way I think about that now is Black women have nurtured a generation through genocide. Whether it's emotionally or physically, they have been there to push us through. I think of my mother that way, and I know a lot of other people think of their mothers, their grandmothers, their aunts, and their sisters that way, as helping our people survive. And so now it's interesting when you hear people say Black Girl Magic. Like Maya Angelou says, I was so fortunate to be a Black woman. I think if I were born anything else, I would be jealous because you're seeing these such talented people at the forefront of American society, and they're Black women. And then it's not only like some talented 10 shit, like it can only be people who have these big major accomplishments, but it's also a recognition of being able to be carefree too. So when people talk about Obama's children, right? Like that's what they talk about. Like them being able to be carefree Black girls in America, which I don't think we're used to seeing in a lot of ways. And so it's all of that sort of melded together. It's Black women who have been the caretakers of our society, Black women who are accomplishing such incredible things, and then also the ability to be free in a society where we are told not to be. That is Black Girl Magic. So when people say it, it's like a recognition of those things combined. That's why it's so special.
Yeah.
So that's what Black Girl Magic is.
How do people contact you, either for your personal social media or create? Do you guys have a website? How do people get in contact with you?
All of it's very easy. So I am on all the things, even though I like Instagram and Facebook probably the best. Not really. Mm-hmm. And my name, Lauren Marissa Smith. Lauren spelled the regular way, not the Lauryn Hill way. Lauren, and Marissa, Marissa, and Smith, like Will Smith. And that is also my website, laurenmarissasmith.com. And Create has a website, and it's create-inc.com. And you can email Create Inc. through that website, or just at info@create-inc.com. So all very simple.
Okay. Any parting thoughts? Anything? Any words of inspiration, artistic wisdom, or anything that you want to impart upon me and also the audience?
I would I have one recommendation. I think everyone should read/do the activities in the artist way. I think that book is wildly helpful. And I also think that if you want to do it, if you feel any inkling to do it, just go after it. The process will make you a better person.
Dope. You are dope, Lauren.
Thank you.
This is great. And I wish you all the best for your future travels or future things with Create, and also your future training. Well, maybe we'll work together one day. Who knows?
Maybe so. Thanks so much.
That's it for this episode of The Creation Grounds. I'm your host, Aaron Lloyd. Be sure to check out our Instagram for future and previous guest info, and check out our YouTube channel in the show notes below. Email us with any suggestions at thecreationgrounds@gmail.com. And if you got something out of this, I'd really appreciate if you spread the word and the love. Until next time, this is Aaron Lloyd telling you that the sky is the limit. Stay creative.